In this video, I'll be discussing correlational research. Hopefully you'll see by the end of the video that correlational research is still descriptive in nature, however, statistical analysis is possible. Descriptive research is really good at describing behaviors, describing feelings, describing what's being observed. But if a psychologist really wants to see how two variables are related or what's the interaction between variables, a correlational study is needed. So a correlational study is a descriptive study. It's still descriptive in nature, but it's looking for a consistent relationship between two phenomena or two variables. A correlation is a statistical measure. So it does give you a statistic and it tells you how strongly two variables are related to each other. Correlation coefficients can range from 0 to 1, with 0 being there is absolutely no correlation or no relationship between the variables, and 1 meaning there's a perfect relationship between the variables. Finding a 1.0 correlation in nature is pretty much non-existent, but strong correlational relationships do exist. In addition to the strength of the relationship, which is this 0 to 1 number, that statistical measure also can be negative or positive, which we'll discuss more on the next slide. So positive correlations means that there is an association between an increase in one variable and an increase in the other variable, or a decrease in one variable and a decrease in the other. So basically the variables go in the same direction. If variable X increases, variable Y increases. The higher X is, the higher Y is. Or, on the contrary, as X goes down, Y goes down. Or the lower X is, Y is. So they're moving in the same direction. On the other hand, negative correlations are an association between increases in one variable and decreases in the other. So you can see here as variable X increases, variable Y decreases. So the higher X is, the lower Y is. They're moving in opposite directions. An example of a positive correlation might be an example of a positive correlation might be as the number of hours spent studying increases, variable X increases, the number of hours spent studying increases, grades increase, your exam grade increases. So as variable X, study time increases, variable Y, exam grade increases. An example of a negative correlation might be as the number of hours spent on social media increases, so that's variable X, social media time, exam grades decrease. So as social media time increases, variable X, exam grades decrease. So they're moving in opposite directions. Correlations are represented as scatter plots very often. And so here's showing you another positive correlation, negative correlation, and then of course no correlation. So here, as height increases, weight also increases. So as one variable increases, the other increases. And you see this trend for the scatter plot to go up to the right. Here in a negative correlation, we're going down to the right. As the number of hours of sleep increase, the amount of tiredness decreases. So as one variable increases, the other one decreases. And here there's no correlation between the number of hours we sleep and shoe size. So I also had some students last year that have done some correlational research and presented it at the Giles T. Brown Research Symposium. So this was part of my Psi Beta students, and they worked on this research project all year long, part of the Psi Beta National Research Project. We collected some data. That data was put together with data from Psi Beta groups from all over the country, so different community colleges all over the country. We had a really large sample size, and what this is showing you is the relationship between a variety of different variables. So very often when people do research and correlational research, they're not just looking at the relationship between two variables. They send out a survey, they have a whole bunch of questionnaires that students or people answer, and they're looking for the relationship between lots of variables. So here, this is academic self-efficacy, GPA, grit, school engagement, and belongingness. And so here we're looking at the relationship between GPA and academic self-efficacy. And so we see this number is 0.242. So it's closer to 0 than it is to 1. Grit and academic self-efficacy, we can see there's kind of a moderate correlation here, 0.5, so it's in the middle between that 0 and 1. School engagement and academic self-efficacy, we have a 0.456, so again, it's about in the middle. It's a moderate correlation, in the middle between 0 and 1. And we can see that all of these don't have any signs next to them, so we assume that those are positive. So it's a positive correlation. As GPA increases, academic self-efficacy increases. As grit increases, academic self-efficacy increases. As school engagement increases, academic self-efficacy increases. Now here with belongingness, we have a negative correlation. So as belongingness increases, academic self-efficacy decreases. This was an unusual finding. We weren't expecting to see this and couldn't really explain it, but this is what we found. Just because two variables are related does not mean that there is a direct relationship between the two, or that the relationship is directional. And so this is shown by, you see a cat sitting here. This is sunk down. Does that mean that the cat caused this to collapse? Probably not. A third unidentified variable may be responsible for producing the observed relation. I'm going to say something else pretty heavy probably landed on this and not this cute, adorable kitty cat. Just to hit home this idea that correlation does not mean causation and how that can affect some real life parameters, I'm going to give you some examples. So in 2015, a consultant report found that companies that advertise on the platform Yelp ended up earning more business through Yelp than those who didn't advertise on the platform. So that makes it kind of seem like, okay, we advertise on Yelp, we're going to get more business. But here's the problem. Companies that get more business through Yelp may actually be more likely to advertise. However, there was an experiment ran on this topic, and it did show that advertisements on Yelp actually help get get more business. So there was a correlation. We couldn't tell if it was directional, and so someone did an experiment to see if there was a cause and effect relationship, and we will talk more about that in a separate video, how we determine cause and effect relationships. In 2020, there was an article between police spending and crime. It concluded that a review of the spending on state and local police over the past 60 years shows no correlation nationally between spending rates and crime, or spending and crime rates. So no correlation between spending and crime rates. This is misleading though, because we know as crime rates increase, there is more spending on police. However, which comes first? So experiments again have shown actually that increased police presence does decrease crime. And in 2023, a researcher that had conflicting correlational research combined forces to see why their research contradicted. So one group found a correlation between higher income and happiness, and another did not. Well, they did find that in general, and up to a certain income level, the higher the income, the happier the individual was. There was an exception with people who are financially well off but unhappy. For them, more money doesn't help. So it isn't a causal or simple relationship. You have to be happy first for more money to make you happier. So again, just showing you the complicated relationship between correlation and causation. And so you cannot determine a cause and effect relationship between correlational research.